Skynet had sent several Terminators to hunt him. One finally caught up with us and carried out orders from a future that never happened. Since then, I hunt Terminators and I drink until I black out. Enough of a resume for you? Here's your look at the new NECA toys. This is the Terminator Dark Fate, and this is Sarah Connor. Danny Ramos is living a simple life in Mexico City when a highly advanced and deadly new Rev 9 Terminator travels back through time to hunt and kill her. Danny's survival depends on her joining forces with two warriors, Grace, an enhanced super soldier from the future, and a battle-hardened Sarah Connor. As Rev 9 ruthlessly hunts for Danny, the three are led to a T-800 from Sarah's past that may be their last best hope. First thing we're going to do for this review is get to the very top of Sarah Connor's head. Why are you doing that? Well, that's so I can provide you guys the service of telling you how tall the figure stands. While you guys are reading that, while I'm about to tell you the height, I'd also like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys who were nice enough to provide this sample that you're seeing in this review. 6.6 inches in height is Sarah Connor to the very top of her head. How does that translate to centimeters? Asks members of the mob that favor their figures in centimeters. Well, the answer I can tell you very cleanly and easily. 17, almost 17 centimeters. 16.9 to be exact. Not much of a reviewer I would be if I didn't do some size comparisons, so we'll bring in the only other figure currently available for the Dark Fate line. I don't think we are getting any other figures, and it would certainly be hard-pressed for NECA Toys to want to go and produce more figures for an ill-fated, there I use the term ill-fated movie. Unfortunately, it didn't do well enough, so I don't know. The hope of potential sequels sort of falls in the same gray area as the hope for future Dark Fate figures, sort of just up in the air. At the very least, I hope we do get ourselves a Rev 9. I mean, history has told us normally when we get a Terminator film, there's always tends to be the Terminator that goes along with that. That worked for Genesis. I believe we did get the T-1000 as part of that. I hope at the very least we do get ourselves a Rev 9 to go along with Arnie and Linda here. Speaking of Arnie did have a fair number of accessories. The T-800 had 3 weapons, 2 hands, and 1 interchangeable head. Sarah Connor has about that. I say about that. She's actually 1 hand short of having the exact same number of accessories as the T-800, and let's have a look at those right now. Included with the figure, you get yourself an M4A1, a rather large machine gun, cast solely in black plastic. There's no additional paint or anything like that, and again, a really nice looking weapon that you can certainly display with the figure. Just between you and me, and don't tell anybody else. Okay, you can tell other people. I'm probably going to be displaying the figure with this, and I'll probably be displaying the figure with the glasses on. Did I say too much? I might have. Stay tuned for that, because we're going to talk about the alternate head. Also included with this particular figure, she gets the Serbu Super Shorty. A rather interesting looking shotgun. It does also have the little swing out bottom to it. Unlike the other weapon that we had a look at, this one does have some additional paint. It looks like the handle has been painted. I think it's actually just texturing that's throwing me off. But most definitely the top has been painted. This chamber right here has been painted. And of course the bottom section has been painted there as well. And you can display her with any one of those things. You just can't, there's no place where you can house it if she's not displaying it. Quite the contrary can be said for the next weapon, the smallest of the batch. This is the Chapa. I think it's the Chiapa Rhino 50DS, or is the Chapa Rhino 50DS. Never quite certain the pronunciation for that. But it's a smaller pistol nonetheless, rather intimidating looking pistol actually. It's been done in, once again, black plastic. There we go, thank you camera. And you got the handle section done in a brown paint, just to add a little extra oomph to it. Now you can display any one of these weapons in her hand. I did mention that none of them can be housed on her, except for the Chapa. The Chapa simply slides into the holster on the side. When you think you can't get it down far enough, just keep wiggling it down. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. It does actually make its way eventually to the bottom section and peeks out to the bottom of the holster. I probably will just end up keeping it there, in all honesty. I think of the 3 weapons, it's the weapon that I would least likely display with the character, so I would be likely just displaying it right there. To get it out, by the way, it is a bit tricky. You have to pop it. I find easier to pop it from the bottom and then fish it out that way. She does also have 1 interchangeable hand, not 2, like a T100 or T800. It actually happens to be what seems to be the exact same hand. I'm surprised that they wouldn't have put the hand over here, because this hand, like the Arnie, is only really a support hand. I'll show you what I mean in a second. But they actually give you what seems to be the exact same hand on both sides. I don't know why they would have given you the same hand on this side while abandoning the idea of just keeping, by making interchangeable hand go on this side if you want to display the figure with both. If you want to take one of the weapons, I think this is going to be the one I'm going to display her with. We just bend the elbow like that. And then you can get the bottom section, because she does have, after all, a flat palm. And she can brace the under section of the M4A1, just like that. And again, I'll probably just end up displaying her like that. I'm curious, though, why she didn't have an interchangeable hand option for this side. It seems like it's the exact same hand. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and take the hand off. The rather interesting aspect of this Sarah Connor not only is the fact that the head sculpt is fantastic. I mean, that looks exactly like she did in the film. Slightly older, yes, as it is certainly age and time affects us all. She is experiencing some wrinkles. You can see right there on the face. I sort of get the same feeling, the same emotions when I'm looking at this particular figure. It reminds me of the recently released Laurie Strode, from, again, a movie where a character came back, an actress came back and reprised her role, a strong female lead. I get that same feeling when I'm looking at Linda Hamilton here, certainly as Sarah Connor. If you prefer, however, to give her the glasses look, which I honestly am leaning more towards, they give you the option there as well. Now, if you look at it, tip it slightly up. It does look like they've sculpted in eyes underneath that. I don't know if the eyes are completely painted in. I would certainly not want to pop and force the glasses off to prove that theory. But let me know down below in the comments section which head sculpt you would actually go with. I'm leaning towards this one, honestly. But the head sculpt is the defaulted head is so good. I almost feel like I'm doing a disservice by popping this head off and replacing with this head here. If, however, you do want to change it, simply just grab the torso, once again, wiggle it off. And again, I'm loving the fact that NECA Toys are using these thin, slender posts. It makes changing the heads so much easier, so little stress, fuss, and muss. And as you can see, yeah, that's a good-looking head sculpt. Again, in case you missed it, that's what the other head looked like. Both portraits, fantastic. They look dead-on likeness to Sarah Connor. For the sake of this review, you know what? I'm going to keep the one with the glasses on for the rest of this review. The hair sculpt that they put in is, of course, incorporating some additional grays. The hair sculpt itself looks like it's exactly the same. In fact, I would be hard-pressed to see differences between the two. The expressions are the same, sort of that neutral expression. She's war-torn and, you know, certainly a veteran in the way of hunting Terminators. And that certainly is expressive there in her face, as aged and wrinkled as it may be. The rest of her outfit is sort of really a SWAT style with body armor. She's got the she's got the black pants, and then she has some military boots on. There's not a whole lot of additional color added here. Thank goodness for the olive-colored long sleeve shirt that she's wearing, and for the fact that the body armor, the suit here, has some additional kind of semi-glossed, or would you consider that gloss? Doesn't matter. We're going to go with semi-gloss. Semi-gloss paint added to the mid-torso and along the top section right here. In case you are wondering, it doesn't appear like this could be removable. I did get a little bit of paint, however, we'll just flake that off. Probably likely the remnants of what came from the elbows. It does not seem as if you could remove this. I would imagine, even though the top does look finished on both sides, I can't think that down here would be finished. So I would ill-advise the idea of taking this off. I would just probably leave it as is. Sculpting on the body is done quite well. The legs, like I said, the way that the wrinkles form, natural wrinkles form around the knees. This is always something that sometimes we so quickly forget, that somebody would have sat down and figured out where wrinkles would naturally form on legs. You simply just can't throw it anywhere you want. And I always think that fabric, even though this isn't technically the material, we're not talking a material here other than plastic, but the fabric on costumes, on these plastic figures, is really quite impressive when you look at them and see how much detail and care that they put into these pieces. Let's talk articulation on Sarah Connor. Her head rotates all the way around. It hinges up and down. She has what seems more the generous articulation than her counterpart, the T800. And I think a lot of that could be contributed to the fact that he had the higher collar, and maybe because he had the broader neck. Because she has a little bit of a thinner neck, it seems like I can move the head a lot freer on this particular release. The shoulders hinge outwards. Not quite at a 90-degree angle, just a little less than a 90-degree. Would that be like an 80-degree angle? Somebody's getting out their measurements right now, trying to figure out what degree that would be. The arms move forward and they move back. I do find that the arms are a bit stubborn when it comes to moving them. I can move them a fair bit about there, but I can't seem to move the arm any bit past that point. As I am moving it, there's a lot of resistance, perhaps like the human resistance. But unlike the human resistance that pushed forward and won the war, this is resistance that I feel like I want to be stopping abruptly because I don't want to run the risk of breaking the joint that's in the shoulder. So it does seem like the arms only go to about there. If you can go past that point, that's great, but I do feel like there's a lot of stuff stopping me from moving past that. She does have the hinge in the elbow, which also allows the forearm to rotate back and forth. She does also have a rotation in the hands, where you can hinge the hands back and forth as well. When it comes to the bodysuit here, she does have the ball joint, and as you can see, they've left just enough clearance, and because this is also rubber, that you can get a bit of a crunch happening in the upper torso. It moves back and forth, and it rotates all the way around if you wanted to rotate it all the way around. The legs split out like that, about that as far as it's going to go. You can go forward and back on the legs. Doesn't really swivel all that much. It doesn't swivel really until you move the legs further down. Obviously that makes sense because as you move the leg further up, you're now getting the top section of her waist sort of stopping the swivel. You can get it in there, but it's not as free as if you had the legs completely straight. She does have the bend at the knee. You can rotate the lower leg back and forth, and she does also have a hinge up and down with an ankle rocker. Peg holes in the undersides of her feet, if you are wondering. A little bit more additional paint has flaked off. Again, a lot of that can be for the fact that when you are moving things that have been painted, like the shoes, for example, or a lot of times I find the culprits are the hinges in the elbows. If they painted hinges, basically the first couple of times that you are moving the figure around, you're probably going to start seeing a little bit of paint flaking off. Luckily, it does seem a bit like the plastic underneath the paint is roughly the same color. So you really don't have to worry that when you are bending the elbow, you're going to flake the paint off and you're going to see a different color altogether underneath all of that. Sarah Connor is a nice looking figure. I guess technically the second Sarah Connor that we've gotten, I've already had a look at the ultimate first Sarah Connor from Terminator Judgment Day. But again, I kind of feel like I'm going back to the same feelings that I had with Laurie Strode. It's really nice that we are getting a figure again, and unlike Laurie Strode, who only had the first ever figure from NECA Toys from her reprising her role essentially, Sarah Connor and Linda Hamilton benefited from having two figures. She already had the ultimate Sarah Connor from Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and now she has the ultimate figure from Terminator Dark Fate. Even though Arnie had reprised his role or lent his likeness in every one of the Terminator sequels that's ever come out, Linda Hamilton hasn't. She, of course, was in Terminator 1, in the very successful sequel, Terminator 2, and then just written out, died in Terminator 3. Or I guess that's what we assume. She died. Her casket was carried out by Arnie in Terminator 3, and other than that, other than maybe an audio clip in Christian Bale's standalone Terminator Salvation, she really hasn't come back at all. So you can imagine the breath of fresh air that filled the room of Terminator fans to find out that Linda Hamilton was in fact coming back and reprising a role of Sarah Connor in Terminator Dark Fate, which ultimately resulted in a film that didn't do so well in theaters. Thank goodness, though, even though the film didn't do well, we can still live vicariously through these marvelous pieces of plastic released from the folks over at NECA Toys. Linda Hamilton here as Sarah Connor, an older Sarah Connor, yes, does look very good. And as much as I said I like the likeness of Arnie, I might even say that Linda Hamilton's likeness here was better presented in the Sarah Connor figure from Terminator Dark Fate. Both likenesses are really good, but I definitely think I'm going to tip my hat to the Terminator Dark Fate Sarah Connor as having the better likeness of the two. It's sort of sad when you think about it, when you look at how these actresses and actors age. They don't look as young, obviously, and youthful as they did in their original film appearances, much like Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, reprising her role in the newest Halloween and the subsequent sequels that we're going to be getting. She isn't no young spring chicken. And again, it's kind of sad when you see them, how they look now. As age and time certainly affects all of us, I certainly don't look as I did in my 20s. So when you look at a figure like this and the likeness is so dead on, you can't help but feel sad when you see wrinkles on Sarah Connor's face that she didn't have in Terminator 2. That is, again, a testament to the sculpting work that NECA Toys are able to put into figures this size. Fine work, guys. Fine work. A big thank you, by the way, to the folks over at NECA Toys who were nice enough to supply this sample my way. What do you guys think of the Terminator Dark Fate Sarah Connor? The film didn't do so good, but I gotta admit, these two figures that we've had a look at are blockbuster hits. Let me know down below what you guys think of the Terminator Dark Fate Sarah Connor in the comments section. If you guys are new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and stay tuned, friends and colleagues of the mob, if I can call you that. There's going to be a whole lot of NECA reviews coming soon to this channel, so keep your peepers peeled for that. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.